Sex workers of Reddit. Who was the grossest customer you've had? Had a guy who was high as a kite who wanted me to rollerplay with him, that I was his daughter, and he was raping her. When it was over, he confided he'd done it before in real life. I had no idea whether he was still rollerplaying or not. I went to my supervisor afterward, and she said nothing we can do. Total anonymity. Quit and went to the police instead. Don't know what became of it. There's scat and other gross fetish stuff too. But that's the one that really haunts me. I got to the man's house, and he wanted me to pour bleach on my titties. I literally just walked right out and never looked back. I was a cam girl, and it was one site where you take a private show, and your client could turn on his webcam if he wants to. I had a guy lay down on his floor with his ass back propped up against the side of his bed so that he would be essentially upside down. All he wanted me to do was dirty talk while I watched him jack off and come onto his own face. I had a guy that just wanted me to spit full globs of phlegm in his mouth while laid on his back with his mouth wide open. I'm rarely grossed out, but I just can't deal with copious amounts of spit or phlegm. It took so much effort not to gag. Throw up just from seeing it slide past his tonsils. On the other end of the spectrum, I had a guy who liked to just lay on the sofa while I sat on him and watched TV. Human furniture fetish is definitely my favorite type of booking. I have two different guys that I'll never forget. The first was one that wanted my feet to be filthy, dirty and stinky if possible. Then I had to smash one foot in his face and get him off with the other foot. The other guy wouldn't let me turn on any lights at all, and when I got undressed I touched him and found his one ball was the size of a pillow. It freaked me out so bad I told him I started my period and needed to leave pronto. There's many more, but these two guys always stand out. Way back in the day, when I was a stripper, I was giving a dance. The room was dark, and I was giving a lap dance to a usual customer. The customers were allowed to touch, as long as it wasn't any no-no zone. So I was sitting on his lap. No grinding. His hands to his side. And I randomly felt warm goo hit my back. I have no idea how I didn't notice anything sticking out, or how he managed to get off with no physical touch. But I was mortified. I got up, demanded my pay, and quickly ran to the bathroom. Had to have the bouncer escort him out. Yes, not a sex work, but a sexy worker. I work at a sex store. We have a guy whose kink is cleaning. So he went to the arcades, glory holes and cinema, and pulled all the used condoms out of the garbage can, and ate the cum in them. We also have a dude that likes to lick door knobs and another one who smells the used paper towels. Edit. Holy crap. I can't believe how much this blew up. Thank you all for the rewards. This is by far my most popular comment in all of social media history. Phone worker here. I had a guy wanted me to put bodily excretions rollerplay on him. I was so stumped. So I said, if you've been a bad boy I'll piss on your face. If you've been a good boy I'll crap in your mouth. Cue the minute-long groaning, grunting and screaming the guy did with what I could only assume was the filthiest, never-ending tsunami of spunk. Followed with a thank you mistress, I logged off for the day and did other things. I have no problem with kinks or fetishes, but he acted like he won the lottery. Was a stripper. The ones who tell you that you look like their daughter's friend, ECT, are pretty gross. Foot fetish dudes would come in at the end of the night and the sweatier your feet were the better. Most girls love them though, because they give amazing foot rubs and pay you for it. Had a guy come in and lay on the floor and pay me to try to fart on his face. He was dressed like Carlton on Bobbin Street. Honestly, a lot of girls like ones like this too. They pay really well, and you don't have to really do any work. Edit. Thanks for the silver. Dude offered me $500 to adopt a dog and have sex with it. I very firmly declined. Not really a sex worker, but I stripped for a bit in college. The amount of older guys saying things to me like tell me your real age, or don't worry your little secret is safe with me, while grinning terribly was always gross. I look young, so that wasn't very pleasant. It got worse when they would try and blackmail me into actual sexual contact by saying they'd reveal my actual age. Fortunately I was 19 so could just tell them to go ahead and do it. From being a stripper. This guy smelled gross. Paid for 5 minutes in a private room. Everything goes well. The typical no touching private parts thing. He didn't want to pay for more time. So I was putting my clothes back on, and he just hugged me really tight. Then kneeled and tried to lick my pus. Not my story, but I heard it from a friend. You know how girls will spit on your stick to lube it up before blowing you? There was this one customer who told his girl for the night that it was wasteful to spit on his stick, and requested that she spit in his mouth instead. For every time she spit in his mouth, he would give her $10. $10 to literally make his bed. Condom avoiders, those who just plain reeked of beau, cheesy feet, dirty ass, too many cigarettes, and who were complete strangers to a toothbrush. People who were scabby and scaly with suspicious sores in places you definitely don't want to see lesions. The guy who loved people to fart on him and in his mouth wasn't too flash either, but you got a laugh out of it at least. Not really gross, but a guy told me to marry him about 10 different times. I work as a chat girl, so basically he paid to talk to 10 girls. Talked to them about a day each and asked each of them for their hand in marriage. What a weird guy. I'm a part-time cam girl. One day a guy paid me $30 to watch him masturbate and barking while wearing his socks on his ears. Lasted less than a minute, and it was very surprising. Edit. TKS for the silver. To clarify some point, I don't want to kink shame him. The guy was nice and polite. Just wanted to share. I didn't really watched him. I had like a YouTube video on the other half of my screen and I didn't had to do anything. Excuse my bad English. Not my mother tongue. Not a prostitute. But I was sexting with a customer who wanted to rub my vagina juices all over his gums because all of his teeth had been removed the year prior and had been replaced with metal plates in his gums. He said this all in the same breath. Sir. Online sex worker here. But had a customer send me a script for a custom video where I pretend to be a 13-year-old girl, call him daddy, and talk about my day at school. What it's like being a young girl etc. Instantly blocked. Former cam girl. Had a private session for a client who wanted to watch me crap with the camera angled at my anus. And now I don't kink shame. Especially when I was a broke college student, but LMAO. Tried to do it at first, to stretch out my session. More time spent in private means more money. But nothing was coming out. Anyway, it felt super gross trying to crap on my hands and knees, so I just apologized and closed the session. Not a sex worker, but I worked the front desk at a hotel, and had a John attempt to scam a girl out of paying for whatever they did, by claiming he couldn't find his wallet. They both came down to the front desk. I suggested perhaps his wallet was in the room he has booked for himself, and not the girl's room. It was clear he hadn't told her that part, and gave me the nicest death glare. Ha duck you buddy. Pay your sex worker. There was this guy, a chauffeur for the rich and well off. He had a 1-inch penis, so couldn't really have sex. But he loved going down on girls, specifically really smelly and dirty girls. Ugh. One time he asked me if I could let another guy come in me so he could lick it out, and begged to suck my period out. So grateful that life is behind me. I was working for a new company and a man came in who requested to be referred to as the East of Thought and Mind. I wish I'd never booked him. My childhood friend's father, but thank ducking God he didn't recognize me. I wouldn't kink shame anyone. The worst thing is when a guy smells gross or tries to haggle with me. Take a shower before we get naked please. Well, a friend of mine said they had to use a gaming YouTuber voice during it. So that. Probably that. Edit. My ducking sides hurt. Thank you all for the amazing replies. The guy that refused to accept that condoms were required kept offering more and more money. It ain't about money, my man. If you want it raw within minutes of meeting someone, how on earth am I supposed to trust that it's safe? Pro tip. It's never, ever safe. You have to clean the jizz off the glass before it streaks. A client that I really liked once sharted on a white hotel bedspread. I almost cried. I had to wash the doona in that one spot, and flip it, and sandwich a towel on the bottom and a top sheet with a towel underneath. Not enough money in the world for that one edit. Oh wow. My most upvoted comment is about someone who paid me for sex crafting on a bed in front of my very eyes. Not so much gross as very icky feeling. I had a first time client that I met with, and dude was at least 90 years old. He couldn't hear me well, couldn't see me well, and put up porn at an insanely high volume for us to watch during our own stuff. It was freaky. This was also my second day of work in the field, so it wasn't the best. I could talk about the gross parts like the guy who basically pimped me out raping me for a photo shoot, or any of my clients that went too far or chose to ignore my consent. But yeah. My aunt's best friend was an escort in the late 90s. One day she calls my aunt sounding upset and proceeds to tell her that the customer she just had wanted her to wear his daughter's clothing and speak like his daughter. The grossest part. The daughter was 2. This thread feels dark. Like a B thread at 3 AM. A customer for a custom video of farting and talking about what I was doing during. No amount of money was worth that. Thank God I had the freedom to decline that order and block him. I originally read this at Greatest and was confused by all the negative stories. I have nothing else to say except I hope all of you are safe. Amateur sex worker here. I was my own worst customer. Jacked off and went to sleep. It was gross.